Greetings, Earthlings. Welcome to another edition of Oh Man, That's Awful, coming to you from the luxurious studios of Radio Titans in Los Angeles. And as always, I'm one of your co-hosts, Carl Kozlowski, and with me is...
I'm your other co-host, Kevin Corcoran.
And our Wizard of Sound,
Dr. David Robinson.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, today is going to be a really interesting show, I think, because... normally, we just have people just come in and tell their stories, and we're doing that today, of course. But I want to explain that originally my concept for the show was that I love reading horrific Yelp reviews, particularly of crappy-looking hotels, motels that look frightening in the middle of nowhere, or when you're like, I ride the bus around LA because of a medical. I'm a narcoleptic, and so I got stuck right in the bus. And I notice crappy hotels whenever I do open my eyes, and I always make a note of I want to check out the Yelp reviews on these things because it's some of the funniest crap you'll ever read on the internet or anywhere. And so the show originally, the concept that I was hashing out with Kevin was to read some of these worst Yelp reviews, find people that had placed them, and get them to come in and tell their stories, and dig further into this horrific scenario. But it was just too hard to find people that were willing to actually come in and talk because they
write businesses.
Well, that would have been fun to have the owners come in and talk and explain themselves. But I mean, the customers, a lot of it are the people writing the reviews. A lot of them were doing it with Amy A. Like they don't really want to know their name. I'd write them, and they're like, hell no, I don't want to be really known for this. So we started the show where we talk about all sorts of life issues and handle things like obesity and sexual harassment and addiction and whatnot. But today,
it's one hell of a Yelp review.
Yeah.
Finally. No, I'm saying on this show.
Right. No, I got you.
We're not just going to keep plugging a show that doesn't exist, are we?
But today.
It sounds good.
I'd watch
that. I'm finally
Yeah,
down to the roots, returning to the roots of where this all came from. And I put out the word a couple weeks ago asking on Facebook for anybody who's funny to tell us some awful stories about a hotel or a restaurant that they've worked at and their experiences. And today, our funniest respondee is here. A man named SKYLER BINGHAM, who is a comic and a writer, originally from Chicago, now here in Los Angeles, tearing it up on the scene. And he will be at the IDK show at Stories Books and Cafe in Echo Park Friday night at 8 o'clock. That's Friday, June 1st, in case you're hearing this in time.
First of the month.
Oh, yeah, when does it come out?
Well, tonight.
Yeah, that's when you have a sound wizard, you can turn these things around like nobody's business. So it's none of your business, I guess is what I'm saying.
Okay, got it.
But anyways, whenever you're listening to this should be very funny. Give it up for SKYLER BINGHAM.
Hi, SKYLER.
I clapped for myself.
You're one of our type of guests we like to refer to as the pre-famous.
Oh, cool.
Is that how we're pronouncing it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very famous.
So, SKYLER, I put this notice out, and you responded with a couple of absolutely horrifying things and said you had plenty more to offer. So, first off, tell us about yourself in general. You say you're from Chicago. Have you always stumbled into horrible jobs and bad situations, or what?
Yeah, I'm from Utah originally, and then I moved to Chicago to study comedy. And so the way that I studied comedy this whole time was by waiting tables, and then that just keeps happening. And so I think the worst of any of the stories that I will tell is just that I've been doing it for 10 years and there's no end in sight. Like, that's the most horrific part of it.
They do say comedy comes from pain. And
right.
Yeah.
It's having waited tables myself. I know there's a lot involved in that job.
Yeah.
Basically, the question is, what went so wrong in your life?
That I keep doing it? I went to therapy the other day. Like the free kind, or the scale kind.
An open mic?
I was going to say, you take the bus also?
Kind. Yeah.
You mean an open mic?
By the way, wait a second. So you fall... I have a question. You fall asleep on the bus.
Yes.
And then you wake up and you go, oh, crap, I fell asleep on the bus again. Oh, but good, there's a spooky hotel.
Yes. Pretty much.
Yeah.
It made it all worth it.
Oh, you've seen his act.
Yeah, so I don't know. Anyway, she asked. The therapy was just like, "Oh, do you think it's self-sabotage?" And I was like, "Oh, shoot, it probably is.
Right.
It probably is. I don't know what
Now
else."
that we've addressed that,
Yeah.
did she help you get out of it?
No.
Oh, well, I mean, honestly, knowing my own experience waiting tables, it's not a great job, but there are fewer ways to express your own self-loathing and continue self-sabotage. That it's fairly lucrative for that.
It's a very low grade self-sabotage to where, like, if your feet can handle it, then you can keep doing it for a while, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, because I also have I'm a panoply of medical disorders, but I also have a problem with one of my legs, and so it's like, I had a friend who was saying, when I was thinking about, do I need a second job about a year ago, he's like, okay, you do not want to wait tables, you do not want to be standing as a cashier, you don't want to be, so yeah, that sounds like it is a rough life.
Basically,
right?
unless you're willing to go, hi, welcome to Time Life. I'm Carl, your operator.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Out of them. Telemarketing is another one. But the thing that I mean, hard to say, you prefer telemarketing over anything, but when you can hang up the phone and not have to deal with the idiots instead of having to bite your tongue and keep going back to their table, it's
waiting tables is basically telemarketing, but you can accidentally poison somebody.
That's true.
Finger quotes on the accidentally.
And the nice thing is that people want food. Like, if you have to telemarket, you have to, like, cold call people about stuff that they don't want. That's horrible. I mean, sales jobs are
usually
bad,
during the dinner hour. Yeah. So the wanting food.
Exactly. But people come into restaurants. They want food. That's the good news about it, is that you've got,
it's a seller's
warm
market.
Leads.
Well, my favorite telemarketer is this guy that calls up and goes, hey, I'm Randy, or something. I'm like, which sounds nasty, but it's like, hey, I'm Randy, and I'd like to talk to you about solar. And I'm like, well, considering I live in the 3rd floor of a 12-story apartment building, I don't really have a need for solar. Thank you.
These aren't the Glengarry leads, are they? Have you ever encountered, as a waiter, have you ever encountered this? Speaking of, like, people, they come in because they want food. Yeah. Have you ever had something go wrong? The kitchen makes a little mistake. Maybe a burger's underdone or overdone. And you're like, oh, let me fix that for you right away. And they're like, I'm good. I don't want anything. I'm fine.
Yeah, there's this weird thing that happens that people don't want the problem fixed, but they just know it's a very specific type of person that's just like, I don't want this fixed, but I just want you to know that it's not right.
Like, can I replace this with some? No, I'm actually never going to eat again. I'm good.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's over. This whole thing's over. Yeah, that's a very interesting, like, you can tell a lot by a person by them just being like, I want you to know that you forgot my refill iced tea. I don't want it now. It's too late for that. But you forgot it.
Do you have any good stories of people getting mad at you? Getting yelled at?
Yeah, well, when I first started out, I'm pretty bad. I'm not great at it. I don't know how I've been doing it for so long. I'm a twitchy mess all the time. I'm always, like, touching my face and, like, doing things that you're not supposed to do.
Looking all messed out.
Yeah, so I think I've, like, just charmed my way enough to not get fired from any of them. But I used to spill stuff on people all the time. And I spilled, like, a Dr. Pepper right on this woman's crotch. And she had white pants on, and they were going, this is in Utah, by the way. I worked at the Olive Garden, which is, like, in Ogden, Utah. Like, that's, like, the nice place, because it has cloth linens.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I think that they were going to the Sex and the City 2 premiere. And so, not the premiere because it's Utah, but this is like the night that it opened. Yeah,
I'm surprised Utah even has Sex and the City 2.
Yeah, they got it.
They bleeped out half the title. But.
City?
There are those weird companies from Utah that illegally edit. Yeah, it was back in the day. They illegally edit bad
all the fun stuff out of movies.
Yeah. And then the guy turned out to be a creeper and was, like, molesting people in the back of his, like, edited video store.
No.
But he wasn't filming it. And that's what's important.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody else can see.
So what happened with the lady with the Dr. Pepper on the way to...
Oh, anyway, they just got crazy mad about that, and then were just so mad that they weren't able to see Sex and the City. I mean, it was the type of woman who wears white to go to the Olive Garden and then go to a Sex and the City premiere.
The type.
And so... that didn't go well.
Just read you the riot act.
Yeah, I also had these one people. They came in and they had a question. They got the 5 cheese ziti at the Olive Garden, which is a baked ziti. And
sounds delicious.
I put it down, and the guy was like, "What is this?" And I was like, "Oh, it's the baked ziti." He's like, "Well, what's this stuff on top?" So I was trying to explain it to him, and I did sort of like this motion, which is like gesturing over the bowl. And he said I touched it, but I was a good foot off the top. And he was just like, "You just touched that." And I was like, "No, I didn't touch it." And then he was like, "Yes, you definitely did. Let me see your manager."
Oh, no.
And then they really were just like, "You can't touch food like that." And I was like, "I didn't
Why
touch
would
it."
I
It was
do
just
that?
like, that was the word. I mean,
Did you spill anything on him after that?
I should have.
Yeah.
Was it MC Hammer?
Does he get mad about that stuff?
Can't touch this.
Oh, I see. For some reason, I was thinking Hammer Pants had something to do with it. I was like, what?
Hammer Pants have everything to do with it, but we're not there yet.
And you can't touch this is the closest.
All right, well, quick question while Carl's regaining his composure. What do you prefer in terms of waiting tables? Do you prefer working for a corporate chain restaurant or an independent?
Oh, so this is my trick that I figured out is you want to work in a small room that's just like
Like a crawl space.
Like a crawl space. Like in New York, like I worked
Casey's
at an
Corner.
8-table restaurant. Perfect
wow.
restaurant.
Gacy's Corner?
Gacy's Corner.
John Wayne Gacy. He used
People
to
love John Wayne Gacy.
Try the ziti.
I think he would have hot dogs, different types of hot dogs.
He was a clown.
He was.
Can I see the kids menu?
Okay, all right. Back to the story.
I don't remember what it was.
No, you were talking about, you said a small
Touching
Oh,
CD.
he's asking me a little
Small room, yeah.
You work in a small room. That's the best because then you don't have to work with a bunch of people and there's not a lot of miscommunication. And then, so you want to work at a small place that's owned by
Mobs?
people who don't come in very often,
Yes,
but not a
exactly.
corporate place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's
You
ideal.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the worst kind of
what
owner? I
you
mean, what's the worst experience you ever had with a horrible owner or manager?
Just if they're there if it's a mom and pop place and the guy's there all the time, and then one guy he owned the restaurant and I was pretty new there, and this was in New York, and he was getting married, and so he had his like wedding rehearsal dinner there, and it was his restaurant, but. So I came up and they got like a bunch of appetizers to share, and I came up and there was no clean silverware anywhere. Like the guy didn't order enough silverware for his restaurant, and so I just put these appetizers that they were sharing on the table, and I was just like, "There's no clean silverware for them to like dish it up with, so they can just use their own." And he was drunk already because he was getting married the next day to a woman who I think he hates. And so he came up
A
and
marriage
he was
of
like,
inconvenience
yeah.
then?
He came up and he was like, "There's no spoons in these carrots. It makes you look like a retard."
Oh, wow.
And I was like,
No
"Oh my
spoons in these
he's-
carrots?
Wow.
Yeah, because it was
Well,
like
because the
it was like
spoons were in
a
his
share.
pants.
Oh,
It was a sharing dish, which
Oh.
normally you're supposed to bring like a utensil so that people can share with, but there weren't any, and that wasn't my fault.
Yeah.
So he came up to me drunk and called me the R word, and then I still worked there for like a year.
Isn't that awful?
And I really like the guy now, but immediately, you know.
Well, now because he's being tamed
But-
by his wife.
Right. I'm starting to understand what the self-sabotage thing was. It's like, oh, yeah.
Two things about restaurant owners is one, most of them don't have any comprehension of how restaurants need to work. And two, they've made the mistake of opening a restaurant to get rich instead of because they're rich, you know, and that's kind of the golden rule of restaurant ownership.
That is the key. I work for a place currently where the people were already rich. Makes a world of difference if it starts out with money.
Coke habit or no Coke habit? Not you, the
For me.
restaurant owners. We can get into that if you want, but we're accusing others at this
You
point.
know,
But
I think that all of them probably at one time, yes, and one person, yes.
You're not the first Utahan on our podcast that's had a drug issue, if that's what you want to get into.
I listened to that.
Oh, yeah?
That guy.
Yeah, that guy.
Something gold.
Yeah.
Andy Gold.
Great dude.
And
Andy
it
Gold.
was gold.
I spilled something as a waiter. I spilled something on a guy's suit once. I think it was a glass of like Cabernet or something.
Yeah. Ooh.
Just like sloshed it all down the back of his suit.
Dark
And I was
suit?
like, oh man, could you like like send us the bill for your dry cleaning. I'm like effusively apologizing. He's like, I own 6 dry cleaners. Don't worry about it. It's all good. And I was like, oh my God.
That's so convenient though for you.
Oh, it was a magical day. Yeah.
That just
you should have asked him to send customers in.
Yeah, great.
I'll send them right back to you.
Yeah, this will feed into its vertical integration. That's
that just happened to me recently. I have been doing it for like 10 years and they still like mess up. And that's when you feel really bad.